Good morning, M2N followers. This is Kristi Amendola, and I am going to grab Halle, and we are going to get started. So just give me 1 second. This is the hardest part of the whole thing. I don't know why they don't make it a little bit easier for us. Sent the invite. Now let's look for her to come and join us. Here we go. She's coming
Hi,
through.
it's good to see you.
It's so great to see you. I always start off saying this is the part that makes me the most nervous, is just getting everybody on the call at the same time and not doing anything too embarrassing in front of everyone who's watching us do this live.
Well, this is my maiden voyage doing anything like this. So I don't look to me for guidance, I guess, is what I'm
I think we're a perfect living example that you do have to do things that are challenging and difficult. And the good news is we will get through it. And that's the lesson, I guess, for us all to remember when we're approaching something new and different. So thank you for doing something new and different with us. I am so happy to start 2023 with you and to hear from you. I always love the things that you share with our members and what we have in the platform already waiting for our members when we open it up. And I think the conversation today is a really great way to start 2023 and exploring. We start a new year with energy and enthusiasm and optimism, and then by like the third week of January, it's cold, it's dark, it's gray, and we're sort of done. So how do we maintain that enthusiasm, that optimism, throughout the whole year? How do we manage that energy? How do we maximize that throughout the year? So I'm excited about our conversation. Before we dive into it, I would love for you to share with our listeners about yourself and how you started as a leadership coach, and just let them know a little bit about you before we jump in.
Sure, absolutely. Well, my career path has been non-traditional. So anytime I run into people that are questioning whether a traditional corporate route is for them, I'm always welcome those conversations. I started to, in college, got introduced to 100% commission-based work. I sold knives, if you are familiar with the company. It was a really cool environment because I learned intimately how I needed to be proactive, and the results that I got were directly, all fingers pointed back at me. I couldn't blame somebody else. And so it really forced me to learn like personal responsibility for the path that I wanted to realize. I have a degree in biology from Indiana University and spent a few years in the corporate world, job hopping. Learned very quickly that I wanted to make money, but having a job wasn't the route for me. So I went a non-traditional route again and joined the company that you earn pink Cadillacs with. And I did that quite successfully, earned 5 pink Cadillacs, and it was my it was my only source of income. And so bought my house with it and supported myself with it for 15 years. And when I was ready to move from that, it was just an incredible training ground to have real live conversations with people who were navigating professional goals, how that would impact their personal life, what personal fulfillment meant for them. And so I'd been having those conversations as a sales leader, and but went to coaching school in 2017 and decided to pursue that type of conversation as my main source of income. So that's kind of the snapshot of how I got to where I am.
I love it. And we talk all the time at M2N about how do you identify the skills that you have that can be applied in lots of different ways, right? And sometimes they aren't going to come through a traditional credentialing program. Oftentimes they don't. I have an untraditional career as well. A lot of my skills were developed in volunteer roles while I was at home raising my kids. So, but figuring out how to articulate those skills and positioning them for yourselves with potential prospective job opportunities is what can sometimes be a challenge. I mean, look, I'm even stumbling over it myself, even just talking about it conceptually. So imagine if I had to actually say it out loud. But thank you for sharing your story. I think it's really important for our viewers to understand, we all come to these places from very different routes. So one thing I would like to start with today is to talk about some of the pitfalls that you see for people as they are navigating their year or just their career that leads to burnout. What are some of the common themes, threads that you can identify from where you observe?
Yeah. This is a great question, because I think most often what I see is we always have a lot of hope and belief in a future picture of what we would like to see. And I think when we have a future picture or opportunities come our way, we often will say yes. People who are high achievers are used to saying yes. They're used to tackling a lot. They may check their calendar to see what's available in a scheduling sense, but less frequent, and I think that's really important to do, is to check your energy level and to check your fulfillment. We often measure success on a daily or a weekly basis by how much we're getting done. But we forget to say, is this energizing me? Is this fulfilling me? How is this impacting my stress? And when we have day after day that we're living life and it's always depleting, we are like digging ourselves into a hole. So I think it's really important for people to get in touch with what their energy level in a day is telling them, and then feel empowered to do something about it. Does that mean, is this a conversation for me to have with my doctor? Is this a conversation for me to have with responsibilities that I've said yes to, and maybe I need to say no to some things? Is it an exercise situation? Is it a feeding my body better fuel? Is it my mental game? Is it how my outlook? There's lots of different factors that play into that, but we're not used to checking in with our own energy gauge. And the more familiar people can get with that, it allows them to proactively make choices and change things that can better serve them and also get them off of a burnout path.
I like that a lot. I think that I probably fall victim to those pitfalls sometimes. One of the things I've been challenging myself with saying most recently is, how much energy do I want to put towards that? Is this a problem that I need to put a lot of energy towards solving right now? Is it a problem that I will need to put energy towards later? Or is it something that actually can just be the way it is? And I, by nature, am a problem solver, so I feel this innate, desire to solve all problems. And I'm trying to be disciplined with myself to say, I don't have to solve all problems. That's not my job. Just the ones that require my energy most specifically. So I like that a lot.
And another thought that brings up is a conversation I often have with clients is the difference between being responsible to someone or something and being responsible for someone or something. We oftentimes lean into, we assume we're responsible for something. And when we look at our life, we are usually responsible for ourselves, for our schedule, for our children, for our job responsibilities. But then there's many circumstances when we lead a team or we're in collaboration with somebody where we have to recognize where our responsibility ends and they have a responsibility to pick it up. And so that's really I'm responsible to the situation. I will hold up my end. I'm expecting you to hold up your end of the bargain. And so that gives people permission just to step back and, like you said, kind of stay in your lane. Know what's not yours.
Yeah. And that's, I think, a lot of self-awareness on for me, that's a lot of self-awareness on my part to, my default will be to control a situation if I feel uncomfortable and realize that that's not going to actually help me. That's just going to cause burnout. So my monitor just went blank and I lost my next question. So now I'm just going to have to wing it.
That's helpful at all.
You have them. Okay, good. So tell me, well, actually, I might just have you then read the question if you have it in front of you, then I'm not making it up.
Do that. So everybody's seeing behind the veil of,
Right. I didn't memorize them all, I promise.
Yeah, no, but you had asked me, what signs do I look out for in myself that indicate I'm taking on too much? And that's actually, I've had a lot of personal experience navigating that in the last 2 years. And one thing that I have recognized is when I'm taking on too much, there's a lot of adrenaline in my day. I think many times we make a to-do list and we like get charged up to tackle that to-do. And when we get a sense of completion and can cross something off, it gives us a little bit of an adrenaline charge and it feels good. But if I'm repeating that process all day long, I'm putting a lot of extra hormones and cortisol and stress, and I'm around a to-do list. And it doesn't deserve that much intensity. So if I notice that I have that adrenaline charge going, that's a good sign that I just need to pull it back a little bit and practice being present to the activity at hand rather than charging through and seeing how fast I can get to a finish line. And so when I can make that simple adjustment, oftentimes I still get things done in a timeliness that I would have operating either way, but I'm just doing my body a favor and not charging it full of that adrenaline rush. I think other key things is if I'm not sleeping well, turns out that as you have more birthdays, sleep becomes a little bit, and I will ruminate on things. And if I need to get up and go to the restroom in the middle of the night, it's not uncommon for me to be up for 2.5 hours, just laying there, waiting for another sleep cycle. And so if that's happening a lot, then it tells me that my stress is probably too high and I need to recalibrate that somehow. And maybe exercise, saying no to something. It might be reorganizing my expectations on timelines of things. And then I think the last one is if I'm not enjoying the process of something. There are many things that come into our life where we just want to get it done. We might not enjoy it. It's part of adulting and responsibility. But if I can acknowledge and maybe be grateful in that circumstance or in that task that I've been trusted with this, or that I'm in a position in life where I get to oversee this, and there's a privilege with that. And I can enjoy the process somehow, whether it's through gratitude or just pausing and being intentional. That's a lot healthier place for me to be than just working through to get something crossed off and feeling good about the completion of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The three things I've tuned into.
Yeah, no, I really like that. And your description of that adrenaline rush going through your to-do list is very familiar. And it sort of leads me to my next question, which I did get my monitor come back up while you were speaking. So I'm back on track here. I think that we have identified that feeling as a very rewarding feeling. That is the feeling that we have associated with success and productivity. And in our culture particularly, that is something that we really value. We talk about it all the time, maximizing your time and being productive and contributing and all those things, which for sure are important. There's nothing actually I enjoy more than my work. I'm absolutely in love with my work. But I am starting to define a difference between, as you said, enjoying the process of the work and hustling and getting through and getting that adrenaline rush. So we talk a lot about unlearning at M2N because there's so many cultural values that we've learned throughout our lives that we've taken as fact. And as we've gotten older and gotten more reflective in this work, we realize, we kind of need to unlearn that value. That's a value that isn't always fact. And so one of those is about this hustle culture, this desire, this adrenaline rush to be productive and to hustle through, and to say I'm so busy is like a way of bragging to say I'm okay. So talk to me a little bit about your process and how you feel about hustle culture, how you've reframed that in your mind, how do you wrestle with that competing social pressure with what you know is best for you and the pace of the work that you want to do?
That's a great question. I was in an environment that was supportive of a hustle culture. And once I removed myself from it, I started visually observing other scenarios that allowed me to gain perspective on the bubble I was in. And anytime we subscribe to a belief that we are holding as truth or the way the world works, a really good thing to ask yourself is this true? Do I need to keep up this pace to be successful? Where might I find evidence against this truth or perceived truth that I have? And once we give our brain an opportunity to search for evidence that might go against it, we sort of open up our eyes and we start to see things that we never saw before.
Mm-hmm.
Like a 2-year process of me doing that and just realizing the environment that I had been in, all the messaging that was surrounding
mm-hmm.
that. I think that what I've learned is that there is all of this energy in the world that is carrying on that has absolutely nothing to do with me.
True enough.
And so this concept of, things will enter my life during the moment that they need to enter my life. And then I get to touch them or have my hands on them for the moment that I am given to do that. And then I send it back out into the world. And the world and energetically and, is going to then take that and do what it does. Like we are in a world of energy. And so
mm-hmm.
we don't have to control everything or force everything or push everything through. I do believe that there are seasons of life where hustle is necessary. Mm-hmm. And to know how to flex that muscle is a really keen skill and one that employers pay and value dearly for, mm-hmm. because you're a know how to get it done person. Like that's a huge asset that you bring to any situation. But just like anything, if you go to the gym and you're lifting weights all the time, you're going to reach fatigue, and you cannot lift weights 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Rest is an important component to allow strength to be useful. Mm-hmm. Know when to pull back from the hustle and pause and recalibrate and be or think or gain perspective that actually impacts your ability to do something when it is time to put on the hustle. So
right,
realizing the yin to the yang, it's I've read a few books on the other. I'm kind of coining it like success by subtraction. Our is very much we need more, we need to make more money, we need to earn more, we need more square footage, we need the title, we need the more, and that can get exhausting to keep
right.
up. And there's a lot of success that can be gained in life through less. You lose weight is less calories. You want more money, save more. You're spending less. And so it's thinking about the opposite of what's the benefit of less in this situation? Because there is an answer there that our world doesn't promote or give language to. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the important part of the conversation as well.
For sure. Yeah. It's when you were speaking about sort of the balance between, there are people who are really good at that hustle, right? And that is one of their skills, that's one of their values, but finding the balance of rest is so important. And actually reminds me, my daughter is a competitive swimmer, so she physically uses her body at a level that most people could never do, right? And she'll do 3, 4, 5 hours of swimming and weightlifting and all these things, but when she's done, she is the best rester I've ever seen, right? She can lay in a bed and take a nap for 3 or 4 hours, and it's such an example of how, if you're going to hustle, push your body, push your mind to that extreme, how you have to be so intentional about the rest that you provided on the other end.
Great example.
One thing I was going to ask you, as sort of as a follow-up, when you were speaking about the environment you were in before and how it took you, around 2 years to sort of relearn or learn something different. What are some specific examples, if you might be able to remember them or recall them, of behaviors that you changed or approaches that you did differently once that became more obvious to you?
So in my previous life, it was a sales role, and it was active. And nothing happened unless I initiated it. And when I moved into coaching full time, it felt much more organic and like it felt peaceful. And as there was like this sense of flow. Like before I was force, pound, it just was push. And this felt more like a flow. And that and I allowed it to teach me. And I tried not to bring in previous messages of what success needed to look like. I tell us what success must look like. And I'm much better now at going, yeah, but is that really true?
Right.
Here we are on social media doing, a conversation, a tutorial, and social media is filled with people who have courses to do this, and like, this is the way you do it. And really, one person found one way that worked for them, and so they packaged it and they're recommending it to others. That's not the only way.
Right.
And there is a mentor that I had that said, you know what, if something is meant for you, you can do everything wrong and it will still find its way to you. If something is not meant for you, you can do everything right and it's still not going to find its way to you. And that just allowed me to sit in peace. And flow was like, and so I don't have any sort of formulaic, do this, do that. But this is what I would say is reacquaint yourself in a relationship with yourself. Learn to listen to your own internal voice. Learn to, hear what your body and your mind and your energy is trying to tell you. Because oftentimes we are so doing focused that we don't allow that conversation to happen within our own body and mind.
Right. We usually only have the conversation with ourselves when our body is yelling at us and we're, in bed with a migraine, or, then we listen for that day and then we just go back to to normal. That's excellent. I love that. So as we close out our conversation, and you actually, I think, just gave amazing advice, but I will sort of open it up. Are there other pieces of advice or other things you would encourage our listeners to think about as they approach the new year and are sort of managing their energy to feel, I think, more than anything, calm and productive at the same time throughout that year? How would you share some guidance for people to think about?
I would say a good practice is to journal or have some quiet time. Bottom line, it doesn't matter what time of day you do it, morning or right before bed tends to be the times when we have the biggest access through our conscious brain into our subconscious. And just get acquainted with yourself. Through quiet time, through meditation, and observe what comes up. I believe each of us, it's like we're a vehicle, and each car has gauges that tell us if we're in a healthy range or an unhealthy range. And rather than taking our cues from the external world about what those gauges should be, learn how to connect with yourself and understand what gauges are important to you, and learn how to listen to what that gauge is saying. And that is, I think, the biggest practice, because you're different from me. I'm different from my brother, even though we share DNA, and significant others. We are all wired differently. And nobody else is going to be able to give us what we need more than ourselves. And when we can learn to listen to that and understand what our body and mind is telling us, it is the greatest gift in the relationship with ourselves that we can I would say, first, create some quiet time and learn to just listen or connect, whether it's right. I would also in that, just learn what peace feels like internally. What feels like good? You know, we're not all going to be happy, rosy sunshine every single day. And that's unrealistic, but you know, life has ups and downs. And so just to get familiar with what's a healthy range of those ups and downs, and where do we start getting into overheat or danger zone that is time to do something about and to take some action. And I would also just say in the coming year, instead of adding something, to think about what you could subtract. And is there something that you've had on your plate for a time that maybe now it's okay to step back from, and by stepping back, it ushers somebody else into a leadership role or a position that they're really equipped and energetically wanting to give. They're, you know, whatever it is there something to take off your plate or subtract that could really have the ability to let you focus on what's more important and energetically?
I'm there.
Timer on my social media. I only give myself a timer went off, and it was like, you're done. So that's those are my tips.
I think those are excellent. I really, really loved the visual you gave of the car, and looking at the internal instruments. You know, I'm sort of in my mind, I'm visualizing the dashboard and all the different temperatures, speed, all those things, instead of always looking externally as to, you know, what are the road signs saying, what is the weather saying, you know, just using that visual, because I think so often we judge ourselves by what the external world is giving us, and that can often be false. That's what they're imposing based on what their needs are, and we do need to know what's happening in our own car first, before we can navigate those. So I'm going to take that with me. That's going to be a really good visual that I'm going to use. Halle, thank you for your time. Please tell us where our viewers can find you on social media, which we know you have a limited time, which I'm very impressed. That's amazing. Or through your consulting, so that if they want to learn more, that they know how to get a hold of you.
Absolutely. Well, Halle Simpson is my name, and so if you type that into LinkedIn or Facebook, or Instagram, you'll find me on all the things. But my website, www.halle, Halle Simpson, simpson.com. That's the best place I can send you, and you can get links to all my social from there. If you're curious about coaching for yourself, you can fill out a form, and then there's my journal. I have authored a journal, and so if you're looking for a place to start journaling, and the idea of a blank piece of paper in your own hand is terrifying, I have a format that is a really nice, gentle entry into a practice of journaling. So my website's the best place to start.
Excellent. Halle, can we post that link to the journal on our social media for our people to check out? That's a great resource.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you for your time. This has been wonderful. I've learned a lot. I hope our viewers